We're coming to you live for the Built Forward Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app, good Thursday morning. And as all this NFL offseason stuff continues to swirl, I'm getting annoyed. I am getting more and more annoyed by the day. As a couple of months ago, I brought up to you, I think it is time that Jon Gruden gets another look as a head coach after everything that happened. And yes, I'm well aware of the things that were in the emails. I went back and I read them all. I understand what was said in private emails with Jon Gruden. And then he gets hired by Barstool, and then you start seeing his personality again. And then when his name gets attached to the Raiders job, just in passing, people putting lists out there, the reaction to that, including some national media members, I'll play you one of those coming up in a little bit, is how could you possibly have Jon Gruden on a list to be your head coach? What a disgrace that would be. Like, second chances don't exist. Meanwhile, we've got players in the league, and most players are great, but there's been a lot of players who get caught up in actual crimes that get second chances right away. Rasheed Rice leaves the scene of an accident and is back playing right there. You get DUIs with Jordan Addison, who was on my team. He has a DUI in the offseason. Bang, he doesn't miss a single game. But this guy's private emails where he said some stuff that he regrets and he apologized for is going to blackball him from the NFL forever? It's insane. And you want to tell me this guy's a straight-up bad guy because of that? How about you check every one of your private emails, every one of your text threads before you throw stones at him? Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. Man, you're shot out of a cannon today.
It pissed me off.
I know it does. It pisses me off, too, because I think we both like Jon Gruden. We both see him being, I don't say rehabilitated, but at least we see his personality on Barstool as you're wearing the Barstool golf sweatshirt.
Yeah.
I like it, but and he does a great job on Barstool, and that guy should be coaching somewhere. That's all I could say. And, there are, these stories of teams that are doing homework on him. But I also think that, maybe there is something that we don't see or we don't know that is leading to teams to be really reticent about giving him an opportunity. And maybe some of that stuff comes from the commissioner's office. I can't imagine that.
See, I can. I really can, because he went after, in those emails, Roger Goodell worse than just about anybody. And he called him an anti-football P word, and that embarrassed Roger Goodell.
I mean, I so think of your friends' text threads.
Trust me, I'm on your page.
Yes.
I just think that Roger Goodell got offended by that, and then he's like, you can't hire this guy. And, he works with the owners closely. He probably tells the owner, we can't bring him back. And then he probably says something like this, we got, end racism on the back of our helmets. What is it going to say about us when we bring Jon Gruden back? And I'll tell you what it says, is that he said he learned from that. And that was a teaching moment for him. So instead of just blackballing him and kicking him out of the league for the rest of the time, let's make this a good story and say, hey, he used some language he probably shouldn't have used. It was a little bit rough in his private emails. Now he's learned that. He's not going to do that. And that's what we need to do to push this conversation forward.
And I would think that if he did get a job and his first press conference, he would probably stand up and say, I want to reiterate my apologies to anybody who I may have offended at that time when those emails were made public. And I'm sorry about that. And those emails were made public. Why were they made public? Were they made public to basically camouflage the Dan Snyder nonsense that was going on?
Well, that's what Rich Gannon said on our show when we had him on.
That's exactly right.
He implied that.
He did imply that. And I think there are a lot of people that really are in Jon Gruden's corner. I just think that there's going to be a loud group of a small number of people that are just going to be virtue signaling and standing on their high horse and basically saying that, he doesn't deserve another chance. But hey, look, I would just say, for me anyway, covering him all these years, seeing him at Monday night games when he was working for ESPN, I mean, he loves the NFL. Now, I don't know. I know he's in an open lawsuit with the NFL. I don't think he...
And by the way, so is Brian Flores. So, everybody that says, well, there's no way that anybody would hire him because he's got this lawsuit. Brian Flores' lawsuit is still active as well, and he's getting interviews all over the place. So you can't use that as a thing when people fight back to me. This is an ongoing lawsuit. Okay. All right, it's not the only one.
I know. I'm not saying that could be a little bit muddy, the whole thing. But my feeling is that this guy loves the NFL, loves the players in the NFL. I think a lot of players that played for him from all indications, liked playing for him. I mean, he is a caricature of himself. You know, he brings that comedian in to do an actual imitation of him in front of his team.
Frank Caliendo.
That was one of the funniest things I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And he's sitting in the room in there, and he's, Caliendo is just, making fun of him. And most of the guys in that room loved it. And, I don't know what else you could do in this world if you can't say, he didn't kill anybody. It wasn't a DWI. He didn't shoot anybody. He didn't beat up his wife. Like, there are so many other things that I could think of that I would say, okay, if he did that, then there's no way. But in this situation, the releasing of the emails, wherever they came from, whether they came from the NFL, whether they came from Bruce Allen, whether they came from Daniel Snyder's side. I mean, during Discovery and all of this crap that was going on with Daniel Snyder. Daniel Snyder walked away with, $6 or $7 billion?
Oh, yeah, right, of course, in selling the team. So it's not like, his reputation might have been shot, but he's probably living the life right now and not even thinking about that. And there was some stuff there with Michael Sam that Jon Gruden talked about. Like, okay, so what's worse? Jon Gruden saying that Roger Goodell pressured Jeff Fisher into drafting Michael Sam, or Tony Dungy saying that he wouldn't have drafted him because he's gay, and Tony Dungy thinks every gay person is going to burn in hell for eternity. Which one of those is worse? Honestly. I mean, I'll tell you, the Tony Dungy one is worse. Now, I'm going to play you the thing that really set me off yesterday.
Oh, wow, okay.
So this is...
You're in sports talk like heaven or hell, whatever you want to call it, and
yeah.
you were listening to people.
Well, someone on X sent me this clip.
Oh, okay.
So it's the Dan Le Batard show. He first starts talking about the Jets and Rex Ryan, and then gets into Jon Gruden. So take a listen to Dan Le Batard. All right, so that's enough. That's where he goes on with the TV stuff. But crimes and eternal shame for everybody involved? Like, what are we talking about here? I mean, I have never seen a reaction like that when a player got a second chance. Like, there was, people with Michael Vick were very upset about that. Eternal shame?
And by the way, when we were on the air and Michael Vick was in jail, and he was rehabilitated by Tony Dungy, by the way.
Yeah,
because
right.
Tony Dungy went out there to interview him. And just so you know, I respect Tony Dungy immensely as a football coach and as a man, and I'm not afraid to say that he stands up for what he believes in, and that's fine. Just like Dan Le Batard stands up for what he believes in. I'm not going to get in here and get in all emotional and personally involved with their takes on things. That's their right. That's what they want to. That's how they want to carry themselves.
Well, the reason I brought it up is
because you used the word crimes.
Well, yeah.
I mean, to me, that's excessive. That's ridiculous, and that is inaccurate. But in his mind, it is accurate. In his mind, the way he looks at things, he feels like what Jon Gruden did within those emails was, he can't come back from that on the football field. I just, my thing about all of this is that everybody sits and we do the same thing here. We opine about everything and everybody and their situations. We happen to be supporters of Jon Gruden. We happen to be, and we both believe that whatever has happened to him, probably happened to him because of camouflaging something of someone else's issues, which I believe were Dan Snyder's.
Yeah, I mean, and I fully believe what Rich Gannon told us when he said that Jon Gruden and Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder, were, and especially Dan Snyder and whatever PR group and machine was behind him is like, well, let's throw these Gruden emails out there and it'll take the heat off us. Now, it ultimately didn't work because Dan Snyder got thrown out of the league, essentially. He was going
to get thrown out of the league anyway, but I think it almost was like, let's burn down the house.
Yeah, I mean, and the owners, I bet you there's a lot of owners that would probably, privately, if you're talking to them, would say, yeah, I don't have a problem with this, and I would like to have Jon Gruden be my head coach, but I don't want to deal with the PR, and I don't want to deal with Roger Goodell being pissed off with me, and I'd rather go with Bobby Slowick and give that a shot as deal with the heartburn that and the agita that bringing Jon Gruden in is going to give me and my organization, and then with sponsors and this and that, it's just they're gutless is what they are, and it's absolutely gutless, and to me it's just I would. Anybody who's sitting there saying Jon Gruden shouldn't get a chance, just think about if someone had access to everything that you sent in a text or an email or recorded you in your private conversations. You're telling me that you've never said anything off color? You're telling me that you've never said a word that could get you in trouble if you said it publicly? It's not like Jon Gruden stood behind a podium and was spewing out some of this stuff. It was private email. Now, he's stupid for putting it in an email. There's no two ways about it. But I actually think he has genuine remorse. And the fact that he gets blackballed and so many other people who committed actual crimes are back on the football field because of their talent, but he can't get on the football field. And you got national pundits saying that his crimes is what was said by Dan Le Batard are going to keep him out of the league is just bullcrap. And it just, it infuriates me. It absolutely infuriates me.
I can see that. I could definitely see that. I don't know what to tell you. It just doesn't, unless those teams that were supposedly doing homework on Jon Gruden come back and find out that their homework is exactly what they're afraid of, and that's the Dan Le Batard take on this as opposed to our take on this. You know what I mean? It's just that's basically the schism that some team may find themselves in, and a rock between a rock and a hard place. And you're going to have to be able to withstand maybe the initial foray into it. But I would think that if Jon ever got a job, he would be able to kind of put the flames out, if you will, in his opening press conference. Let me get this out of the way first. I apologized. I've apologized numerous times. And I will apologize one more time right here to tell you that I learned a valuable lesson. And not very many people have an opportunity to do what I'm doing right now, and that's coach a football team and be a better person, be a better coach, and be a better understand better the relationship between the league, the teams, and the players. That would be the way that he should go about it.
Yeah, you know what also I would do if I were Jon Gruden and I really wanted to get back in? I would get some of the players that I coached, of all backgrounds, every single one of them. And I can guarantee you that 90% or more of those players love Jon Gruden. No matter who they were, where they came from, skin color, ethnicity, whatever it may be, they love Jon Gruden. And oh, by the way, you think that Jon Gruden's the only NFL head coach or assistant coach in the NFL that's crass? Go to one of these practices.
Do you remember when Vic Fangio was the head coach of the Denver Broncos?
Yeah.
And they asked him a question. And his answer, I forget what the question was, but his answer was, the NFL is a meritocracy. Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you remember the incredible blowback that he took?
Yeah. I'm
like, what? It is a meritocracy, at least on the field it is.
Sure.
I forget what his actual, that response was to what question he was asked. But in the eyes of most coaches and all players, it is a meritocracy. Now, if you're a first-round draft pick and you're a top 5 pick, they'll maybe give you 3 years to get your crap together and get it straight. And maybe if you're not and you're an undrafted free agent, they'll just chuck you out the door right out of the gate because there's no PR attached to you. But at the end of the day, the best player is going to be on the field. And that is a meritocracy. You've earned it. And, and Jon Gruden, looking back at some of his hard knock stuff, that's exactly what he was telling his players. You have to rip the heart out of somebody in this building or in this room or on this field. You got to go get your job and you got to break somebody else's heart. That's a meritocracy. That's going after something and earning the goddamn thing. And, that's the beauty of, I think, of sports, that you may get yourself in the door because of something you did somewhere else when you were younger. But once you get in there, this is a man's world. This is about, getting your job, holding on to your job, and impressing the people that are giving you that job. To me, that is a meritocracy. So whatever Vic Fangio, the question he was answering, that answer was 100% accurate. But then he had to come back and say he was sorry about something.
Yeah, of course, because everybody, and I'm sure that time everybody was super sensitive about everything that was said. And, at Jon Gruden at this point is not even going to get that opportunity to prove himself again. And by the way, isn't getting fired, having those things out there, not being able to get a job for years now. We're sitting here in 2025. What was that? It was 2021 that happened?
I think so, yeah.
So is that not punishment enough? Seriously. For those who want to continue to roast this guy, he lost his job. He was publicly skewered for months and has not been able to coach for 4 years or going on 4 years.
Yeah, I think, like I told you, I think he may have been offered an opportunity to coach, but he didn't want to take it. As
a coordinator.
As a coordinator, I do believe that was, that was offered, but I can't, it's hard to confirm that. But it's, like I said, teams have done their due diligence on him. I mean, like he's the perfect candidate for the Jets. We both believe, and because they need somebody that's going to have a top end personality. Now, the other interesting aspect to this, let's say there is an NFL team that hires him, and let's say there's 3 guys on a team that just can't handle what was out there in the public domain and don't trust him and don't believe in him, and they don't want to play for him. Then what? Then what do you do?
See, I don't think that is the case at all. I really, really don't. It's a hypothetical that I'll answer for you. And at that point, I think that Jon Gruden would be able to sit down and have a conversation with those guys and convince them otherwise, because he's got that type of personality. And I know,
it's amazing when he was the players he drafted out in Vegas. I mean, he gave guys 1 million second chances.
Oh yeah. Including Antonio Brown.
Yeah, because you wanted to win. He knew they were good football players. He knew that when they were on the field, they were at their very best. Off the field, you'd have to hold your breath. But on the field, there was no questioning some of the people that he and Mike Mayock drafted out there. Some guys had questionable backgrounds, and he took chances on guys. He gave guys, he knows that, certain people, I would be one of those people, by the way, that when you fall into the NFL, man, you come from nothing. You got to go get it, and you got to hold on to it. And, coaches gave me a chance. My skin color didn't matter. All that mattered was whether or not I could play. And I see a lot of the players that they draft or they did draft and that, were in similar situations like I was. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. He just wants to win football games. He wants to coach players. He wants to help players grow into men. I'm not saying he's perfect. Nobody is. But, I agree with you. His time away from the game right now should have been penalty enough.
All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. Just getting started. We got CeeLo in for Jerry today. I'll give you an update in just a couple of minutes.